Hey ladies and gentlemen, Steven here from Redolessence. I hope you're all doing well. So this is actually my first time reviewing a fragrance from this particular brand. The brand is called Boticario. It has been around for a very long time. And in today's episode, we're going to be reviewing their fragrance called Malbec. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on the scent, so make sure to stay tuned. Before I begin my fragrance review of Malbec by Boticario and I tell you all about this fragrance, what it smells like, comparisons, performance, and all that good stuff, I do want to mention that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. Make sure to enable all notifications by clicking on the bell icon, and of course, give this video a thumbs up by the end of the video if you took something of value from today's episode. I would really appreciate it. Now, this brand has actually been around since the 70s. Their first fragrance was released in the late 70s, and this fragrance itself is actually a few years old, and so it's been around for a while. There's a very good chance that if you're living in South America, you've probably tried this fragrance. I know a lot of my Portuguese and Spanish-speaking friends have actually not only smelled this one, but some of them have even reviewed it. And so the brand itself, in its ancient Portuguese, it's called O Boticario, and it means the pharmacy. And so here we have a fragrance called Malbec, and as soon as I heard the name, I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be a boozy fragrance, right? You think of red wine, you think of that boozy, sort of tangy, spicy aroma that is usually associated with many varieties of wine. And of course, I looked at the note breakdown and there isn't necessarily a boozy ingredient, not one that I was able to locate, but there's a lot of other great ingredients that I love, including cedarwood, black pepper, lime, patchouli, sandalwood. It has a bit of an ambery backbone as well. And oak moss too. Let's not forget that. So it does seem to go in a darker direction. And in any case, I'm excited to tell you what I think of the smell. Let's take a quick look at the presentation. So the first thing that I noticed about this fragrance is the spice. And so the spice is quite prominent. It comes across loud and clear, in my opinion. And I think there's black pepper listed as a spicy ingredient, and I'm totally getting that. Now, it's not like a sneeze-inducing black pepper, which you might find in a fragrance like Poivre Samarkand by Hermes. In this fragrance, it's actually quite subtle, and I think the reason for the subtlety is because it's associated with some woodsy ingredients, the patchouli, but also this creamy sandalwood ingredient that is resting in the base. So it does have cedarwood in here, and cedarwood in and of itself can actually smell a little bit peppery to me. So I think it's a combination of the cedar and the pepper that is kind of contributing to that spicy kick, if you will. But then it also smells quite ambery and mossy. I think probably the mossy elements supersede the amber, and that's because as soon as I smelled it, I was like, okay, now this smells classy, this smells resolute, this smells like something that would have been really popular in the 70s or 80s, but then there's enough of like a contemporary element about it that kind of diverts your attention momentarily. And so at no point are you going to think that this is exclusively an 80s powerhouse type of a fragrance, because I feel like while the oak moss is noticeable, it's still kind of serving as an accent piece in the sense that it doesn't suppress or silence any of the other ingredients in this fragrance. Like the cedarwood is still loud and clear. There's a bit of freshness in here that does quickly subside, and then eventually you get something that's a bit warmer and cozier. And of course, once those ambery facets in the base start to come out, which I think are being complemented very nicely by the creamy sweetness of the sandalwood, then I think you'll start to enjoy this fragrance if you are in fact in the market for an ambery fragrance, right? That accord isn't apparent from the very beginning. It's a bit spicy in the opening, but it does eventually settle down to something that's really nice and really warm on the skin. Now, my recommendation for this is if you are a fan of some of the darker, mossier, green, long-lasting types of fragrances that were really iconic in the 70s and 80s, but you want kind of a modern or contemporary twist to that, and also something that smells a bit ambery, a little boozy, also maybe a touch sweet, but the sweetness is kind of an afterthought in this fragrance. I would definitely recommend checking out Malbec. There is another one from the house that I'm interested in trying, and this one is called Malbec Blue. Now, my impression of this fragrance is that it's more of like a summer-oriented fragrance, and so I'm hanging on to it, and I might publish my review a little bit later on, maybe when it's a little bit more season appropriate, but just trying the two side by side, like this fragrance is warm, it's long lasting on my skin, and I think this is the type of fragrance that I can see myself wearing right around this time of the year. And it does have like this very sort of mature element about it, without of course smelling dated. I think there are tons of fragrances out there that smell dated, including Polo, although I love Polo, don't get me wrong, and I even have the newest flanker that was released last year. But I do think there are some fragrances that will unequivocally remind you of the 70s and 80s. That's not necessarily happening with this fragrance, although you will get a pretty strong mossy vibe in the dry down. And so if you're a fan of those green sort of classy, gentlemanly fragrances, I would definitely check out Malbec. And again, keeping in mind that it does open up rather spicy and a little bit citrusy as well, although that's like really, really short-lived. And then of course it does dry down to that amber. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, this is certainly a unique fragrance in the sense that it pieces together elements that I've definitely smelled in other fragrances. Although that sort of boozy quality about it, I haven't exactly smelled in other fragrances. And the reason I say that is because I think with a lot of the other perfumes that are in my collection, specifically the niche offerings, I'm used to rum, I'm used to whiskey. There are definitely some boozy accords, brandy that I try in many different fragrances, Kilian Paris, Roja Parfum. However, in the case of like a wine perfume, I have one by Tsuga Parfum called Wine and Chocolate. That's probably the closest I've come. Although I have tried other fragrances that remind me of wine, but they don't explicitly have a wine accord per se. But unique scent, given everything that I just mentioned, and I think the overall smell is one that will work really well in a professional setting on perhaps somebody who's a bit more mature, more set in his way, as opposed to like a high school student or something like that. In terms of the longevity, 10 plus hours on my skin. Projection was great for the first hour of application. Maybe for those first 45 minutes, it actually did radiate beyond an arm's length. It started to sit closer to the skin at that 5-hour mark. Right around that 8-hour mark, it was kind of a skin scent, and at the 10-hour mark, it's pretty much disappeared, or you can apply a different fragrance at that point if you're actually going that long into your day. Versatility on this one I think is great. This one is great for the colder weather, so perhaps I wouldn't wear it in the summertime. I can see this one working on somebody, like I said, who's a little bit older, perhaps not a high school student or an early college student. But again, scent is subjective, and these are just recommendations. And again, if you love the way that it smells, let that be the only catalyst that is determining whether you're going to wear it or not, or whether you're going to purchase it or not. And I think this one does give off a bit of a formal vibe, whereas perhaps the blue version gives off more of a casual vibe. And in terms of the presentation, I do like the look and feel of the bottle and this sort of faux leather, or I guess kind of like a leathery feel on the cap here. Clicks into place very nicely. My final verdict on this fragrance is, if you're a fan of oak moss, you're a fan of the resolute quality of a lot of these older 70s and 80s types of fragrances, but you want something with a contemporary edge, you like amber, you like spice, you like cedarwood, definitely check this fragrance out, and I hope you like it. Chances are, because it's been around for such a long time, you've already tried it, but I'm glad that I'm finally getting around to reviewing it, because this brand has been recommended to me many, many times in the past. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for watching this review. I hope you took something of value from this video. It was my review on Malbec by Boticario. If you own or have tried this fragrance or anything from this brand, please let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Also, if you have any favorites that you would like for me to purchase and review in the future, let me know. Leave a comment down below. I'm always interested in trying new fragrances and adding more fragrances to my collection. If you took something of value from this video, please subscribe to the channel, enable notifications by clicking on the bell, give this video a like. I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.